past 4 years, I've been involved heavily in our politics, and as a result, I wanted to share some of the research that I've come across. I'll be sharing a lot of the work of Stephen Newcomb. You're welcome to YouTube his name. My presentation is going to be a little bit more cerebral. I'm going to try to develop a lens for you to be able to look at these issues through and help you to be more critical of what you see on Facebook, what you see on the news, how you see this issue portrayed in the media, and also Morton County Sheriff's Department, and I'll be quoting them pretty quickly here. So a sheriff from Morton County stated the following: while some would like to say this is a protest, this was a riot. We have situations where there were people there, legitimate media that were to film it, were being stopped, were being questioned as to their credentials. Who are they to ask this? They're on somebody else's property. There was a lot of behavior today that took it up a notch. It's not a peaceful protest. It's not a prayerful protest. They say that, but they disguise their criminal behavior. You cannot take your ideology and belief, no matter how strongly you believe in it, and trespass on somebody else's land. Use your ideology to break the rule of law or trample somebody else or another American citizen's rights because you believe your belief is stronger than theirs. That's not how it works in America. We don't make the law, we enforce the law, and the courts have spoken. I wanted to start with that quote because that really sets the stage for, there's so many layers to look at that quote. And I'm gonna try to focus in and zero in on a concept that I call, or that Stephen Newcomb has come to call, the doctrine of Christian discovery, and how that plays into the dialogue and the way people speak about the Dakota Access Pipeline. U.S. Attorney General Hugh Swinton Bighourse, he states, "There is nothing in the whole compass of our laws so anomalous, so hard to bring within any precise definition or any logical and scientific arrangement of principles as the relation in which the Indians stand towards this, the United States government, and those of the states." So although the Morton County Sheriff is saying we don't make the law, we enforce the law, and the courts have spoken, clearly there's some issues in the courts. There's certainly a lot to be talked about in the court system in the United States. As Native people, we cause this anxiety, we cause this discomfort of those who have come to colonize this territory, this land, to call it theirs, to call it their private property, this concept of citizenry in the United States. We stand in direct opposition by being who we are. I'm going to start with the word sovereign. I want to break that down because a lot of people use it, and I don't think they understand what it means. Sovereign, it has Latin roots, and sovereign means from above, or to be super, and then reign means to rule. So if you put it together, it's to rule from above. This is a theme of domination, to rule from above. Their claim that they have rights of domination over our people, our lands, our territories. It presumes something into existence, so in a sense, it's a form of mind control. It's a quote from Stephen Newcomb. Francisco de Victoria, he writes, "Sovereigns, if they had to trace their title to their rule back to its origin, they could not keep anything they discovered." So when the colonizers came, they brought their law from afar. I'm going to talk a bit about where that comes from. And this right of discovery, this right of Christian discovery, is what gives them this assumption of domination, of subordination, and to colonize the world, to make the world Christian. Other synonyms of the word domination are submission, subjugation, subdue, conquer, conquest, conqueror, and Alvin Toffler speaks about how civilizations operate. He says, every civilization has a hidden code, a set of rules or principles that runs through all of its activities like a repeated design. So I kind of want you to kind of chew on that for a little while, because as you see DAPL, as you see this information, as you see these issues, it's really just domination over and over and over like a repeated design. America is actually has Spanish origins, and I want to break that word down for you because I have some issues with how we're called. So America, if you break it down, it breaks down into ame, which is a command form to love. And then rica refers to riches and wealth. So what is the American dream then? Well, it's the dream of riches and wealth. When I go to ceremony, when I go to practice my language, when I go to do ganohonyo, it doesn't say anything about riches, it doesn't say anything about wealth. And yet I'm called Native American all the time in studies, in whatever political rhetoric or whatever scientific articles that are published even today. Another term is American Indian. I have a very similar issue. They don't even name us properly. The word indigenous, I have some issue with that as well because it means those who are dominated. So you have to understand that this language, the language that I'm speaking in English, the language of Facebook, the media, 60% of the English language is in Latin. And you have to understand where Latin comes from. Latin comes from the Roman Empire, which obviously used concepts, principles of domination in their empire. And that seems to be the model that the US follows. Stephen Newcomb, when he was with a Catholic ambassador, he asked him the question, what does Dominorum Christianorum mean? To which the ambassador said, Lords, Master, and Mister. And he even said, it's best not to translate it into English because it would not fit. So you kind of have to dig deeper into the language to understand how people are talking about you, how people are talking about others, and it's kind of there if you dig and look deep enough. What gives the US, what gives New Zealand, what gives Canada, what gives all these governments that are born out of these European Christian nations, this family of nations, what gives them the title to the land? What gives them legitimate claim to the land? Because that's at the heart of all the land claims that we face all the time. So basically, Stephen Newcomb suspects that there must have been these rituals, these ceremonies that these Christian nations went and did. So as you'll see, if you drive around, you'll see flags on posts in front of schools, in towns, city halls. It's a very common practice. Well, that is actually a ritual. It's kind of like capture the flag, right? You go and you place your flag, and that's your territory. That's yours. And that's how these family of nations were able to divide and sort of look at this land that's non-Christian and go in, discover it, and then conquer it. And then be like, all right, that's your spot. You got your flag there. I'm gonna go get this spot, and I'm gonna put my flag there. That's why Mexico is Spanish speaking, and that's why in the US it's mostly English, because you can kind of figure out who won. So it was kind of this up for grabs, get as much as you can as quickly as you can, and it's based off of these rituals, these symbolic acts of possession. In addition, flags hold another symbolic meaning. They also represent the royal standards of judgment, meaning that the king or whoever the governing body is has the right to judge a group of people. So that's what flags represent, and that the people are obviously subject to that domination. And this was in 2014, and so Stephen Newcomb said the problem is that there hasn't been a stronger response from us to these governments. But I'm happy to say that DAPL is the modern form of a form of resistance, or a form of responding. And to me, that gives me great hope. That gives me great excitement. This is a very exciting time in the history for Native people. This is unprecedented, like it's been said. Native people who have been dealing with colonial governments for centuries are actually coming together around a common interest, a common value, which is water. And they're speaking out against domination, really. So domination is at the center of this whole conversation. So some other synonyms I want to share with you are invade, capture, vanquish, subdue, subjugate, dominion, tame, colonize, paramount, domesticate, thank you, conquest, sovereign, civilization, empire, government, reduce, subject, overthrow. Now, civilization was in there, but by most standards, civilization is a good thing, right? To be civilized. Well, if you look at the Webster's Third International Dictionary, the act of civilizing, especially in the forcing of a particular cultural pattern on a population to whom it is foreign. So, Jocelyn mentioned earlier boarding schools. Native children were taken forcibly from their parents, from their communities, and placed in these institutions to be Christianized, to be educated to do menial tasks. They weren't educated to become doctors, lawyers, or engineers, or any of those professions that might meaningfully challenge the status quo. They were forced into these very menial jobs. And that's civilizing. They were trying to civilize the savage. They were trying to civilize the heathen. That was us, because we were non-Christian. And he says, Stephen Newcomb, he says, we have to fight. We have to challenge and we have to refute these claims. And his contention is that we need to reconnect Native people. We need to reconnect spiritually with our land bases as a means of countering these symbolic acts of sovereignty that these colonial governments have exercised. One of the things that these schools did that has really debilitated our communities is something I'm going to call linguicide, or the deliberate suppression of our languages. Language carries values, it carries perspective, it carries a lot about a people. Since having returned to my territory, I've returned with other Gaikono to our ancestral homeland, which is just slightly west of here, or east of here rather. Since we've been back, we've adopted our ceremonies, and we've been able to push through 5 of our ceremonies that we need to do every year to be thankful and to show our gratitude for the Creator. And before coming here, we have these really awesome guys called faith keepers, and as you can imagine, they help us keep the faith. And their function is to make sure our ceremonies and our language survive. And they're really just amazing people. And I asked them, I said, you know, I'm going to go to this college. I'm going to speak to all these young people. They might be influential in the future. They might go get PhDs. They might be in government. They might have some say in the way the world operates. What would you have me tell them about the Dakota Access Pipeline? So here we go. They said, we need to change what we perceive as valuable. We need to place less value on currency. It's just paper. We need to place less value on gold. It's just a metal. We need to place less value on diamonds. It's just a mineral. All these items are things we can live without. We need to place more value on water. 80% of the human body is composed of water. We can't survive without it. We also need to value the needs of future generations. Our grandchildren and their children cannot survive without water. We also need to give value to giving thanks. Ganohanyo, which I did at the beginning of this meeting, is a mind-setting speech. The reason we do it is it's supposed to get us all on the same wavelength, mentally and psychologically. We need to acknowledge the things we need to survive. If we fail to acknowledge these things, we'll lose them. Even if you don't believe in a creator, believe in water. Take care of it, share it. If you go in the lobby here, I did bring several containers of water from a local spring that used to feed and take care of one of our ancestral villages on our homeland. So please feel free to have some. He also said that we need to value developing a connection to the earth. They also said we need to change the way we plan. We worry about immediate needs over a short period of time. We don't look forward the way our ancestors did. We are destroying more than we are conserving. Jobs for a few should not be more important than the water for millions. We need to change before it's too late. Recommendations. They're aware you guys have student debt. This will be used as leverage by corporations to recruit you and your talent. You'll only be able to live off of that for so long anyway. You can't eat or drink money. The things you study are only as good as your application of those things. Just because something is more affordable doesn't make it right. Don't be bought off by a cheap dollar. There's too much at risk. Conservation doesn't make much money, but it is a good thing. If we consume more than we conserve, we'll lose everything. So I just want to share something with you as a lesson from our people. This is a Hiawatha Wampum Belt. This symbolizes an event in our history as different communities that used to be at war with each other. There's stories that we used to eat each other. That's how bad it was. What you see in purple, it's a wampum bead. They're very difficult to make. They take a long time, and they're valued highly in our culture. They also symbolize grieving. They symbolize sadness. They symbolize loss of life, of various things. It represents the purple represents a dark time in our people's history. It represents war. It represents conflict. The white, the connection between our communities, our villages, represents peace, represents cooperation, represents a good mind, represents gratitude and giving thanks. I wanted to share this with you because our people have already been through, I think, what the U.S. is going through. The U.S. is going through war. We're constantly at war with people. Constantly, the defense budget is huge. I think it approximates the next 25 countries combined. So we're familiar with loss. We're familiar with war. We're familiar with conflict. And there are better ways to live. And that's going to be where I leave my talk. Daneto.